The jump burned out faster than it should have. 1 second, the hull screamed under FTL compression. The next, silence. The kind that eats sound, light, and faith. We were above Asterion 9, a system marked dead long before my birth. No planets with life, no radio noise, no reason to exist, and yet something was there. Through the viewport, the star filled half the horizon. Not golden. Not white. It was red, thick, and pulsing like blood under glass. It didn't radiate, it throbbed. Each pulse sent faint ripples across our sensors. Static bursts that made the instruments stutter like they were afraid to speak. The captain muttered something about gravitational shear, but his voice trembled. He didn't want to admit the readings were impossible. The sun's light had weight. It pressed against the hull, bleeding through filters designed to block every spectrum of radiation. Still, the deck plates felt hot beneath my boots. We'd been briefed: get in, scan the anomaly, collect particulate samples, and get out. A sterile science mission, no heroics. But the way the captain stared into that crimson light, I knew he wanted more than data. He wanted contact. The bridge hummed with quiet panic disguised as procedure. Reyes, our comms officer, fought with a static-drenched signal. "Telemetry's arguing with itself," she said. "Every sensor disagrees." "Define disagrees," I asked. She angled the console toward me. "One says the sun's emitting radiation. Another says it's absorbing it. Third says it's alive," we laughed. Not because it was funny, but because we needed to hear human sound. The captain didn't laugh. "Prep the descent module," he said. "We're going to take a closer look." No one argued. You don't argue with command even when you smell something wrong. I was the mission navigator. My job was to chart death safely. I cued the orbital vectors, trying to ignore the way the red light made shadows move against the ship's rotation. The instruments beeped out of sync like heart monitors at different heartbeats. That's when I noticed it. Every pulse from the star made the ship's lights dim. Not randomly, rhythmically. A heartbeat syncing with ours, we began descent. The shuttle vibrated as if the air itself was denser than expected. I kept watching the surface of Asterion 9 below, cracked like a skull fossilized in ash. Fissures ran across continents, glowing faintly with the same red hue as the sun. The captain's voice came through the comms. "Keep eyes on that radiation pattern, pilot." I did. I watched it shift, each pulse of the sun deepening the glow within those cracks, like blood being pumped through ancient veins. Reyes kept whispering the same phrase, "signal interference." But it wasn't interference. The static had cadence, short bursts, long ones repeating, almost like code. I recorded the waveform to analyze later. Part of me already knew it wasn't random. The deeper we went, the more the systems failed. Altitude sensors looped between numbers. Pressure gauges showed atmosphere, then none, then something breathing. When I asked engineering if the hull was stable, they didn't answer. I turned around. They were staring out the side viewport. Transfixed by the sun, we hit turbulence hard. The planet's upper atmosphere wasn't gas, it was particulate matter. Ash maybe, but metallic. It clung to the hull like dust that didn't want to let go. Every scrape sounded alive, vibrating through the frame. Static filled my headset again, but now it wasn't random noise. It was a whisper buried in the carrier tone. My name, once, twice. Then in sync with the heartbeat of the star. I ripped off the headset. Reyes looked at me. "You heard it too?" "Just static," I lied. She didn't push. She was trembling too much. The captain leaned forward. "We're close enough for direct scans. Hold position at 1 kilometer. He wanted to see the planet's surface. I wanted to leave orbit and forget it existed. But I obeyed. The red glow intensified until the cockpit was bathed in it. Our suit's optical filters compensated, tinting everything a sickly gray. But the color bled through anyway, staining skin and metal alike. When I looked at my hands, the veins under the skin pulsed faintly red. "Captain," Reyes said, "the star's output just spiked tenfold. Stabilize the ship. It's not the ship, it's us. The readings are mirroring our biosignatures." That word stuck. Mirroring. I glanced at the main screen. The feed from the forward sensors showed the star again. Massive, throbbing, bleeding light. But for one instant between pulses it darkened. A shadow passed through it, not across it, through it like an eyelid closing. I froze, then the bridge lights flickered. Every display glitched. For one frame, every camera feed, every terminal, every panel showed the same image. My face, not my reflection. My face stretched and frozen, screaming silently. Then, black. I must have lost time. When I came to, the ship was quiet except for the low hum of life support. The captain was still staring at the viewport. "What happened?" I asked. He didn't answer. Rhea sat slumped at her console, headset dangling, lips moving as if she was praying or repeating code. The nav systems were frozen mid-frame, coordinates locked in a feedback loop, replaying the same second over and over. I reached to reboot the system. The panel was warm, almost burning. When I pulled my hand back, my glove was wet with condensation, or sweat, or something else. The hum in the walls changed pitch, rising and falling like respiration. "Captain," I said again, "we need to abort the mission." He turned, slow, deliberate. His eyes reflected the crimson light. "It saw us," he said. "Who did?" He smiled faintly. "Not who. What?" His hand trembled as he pointed at the star. It looked back. I wanted to argue, to reason. But the comms crackled again, every channel flooding with whispers. Voices overlapping, too human to dismiss as noise. They weren't speaking in English. They weren't speaking in any language I knew. But somehow I understood. It wasn't words, it was recognition. Like the sound a locked door makes when it remembers the shape of the key. The captain ordered me to resume descent. I didn't move. He drew his sidearm. Not to threaten me, just to remind me of hierarchy. The sound of the safety click echoed too loud in the pressurized cabin, so I obeyed. I gripped the controls, guiding us down toward the planet's cracked surface. The star pulsed faster, brighter. The hum inside the ship matched the rhythm of my heartbeat. Or maybe my heartbeat matched it. I couldn't tell anymore. Reyes began crying softly. "It's inside the signal," she said. "It's in the readings." Her console screen glowed faintly red from within, pixels shifting like living tissue. I smelled ozone and something coppery, metallic, like blood baked on iron. I told her to disconnect power. She didn't move. Her eyes were fixed on the display. "Reyes," I said louder. She turned toward me slowly. Her pupils were gone. Only the red light stared back. Then she smiled. The captain shouted. I pulled us up hard. The ship groaned, engines screaming, but I barely registered it. Outside, the star flared one last time, flooding everything in scarlet. My vision blurred. My veins felt hot. My heartbeat no longer matched the sun's rhythm. It was the rhythm. Every alarm screamed. The cabin filled with red fog. Through the viewport, I saw the planet's surface splitting open. The fissures glowed, releasing something like plasma, but too organized, rising in arcs, spiraling toward us. The red light within it looked like eyes. Millions of them, all blinking in sync. The ship's systems died one by one. Comms, nav, life support. The final log recorded a single line of telemetry before the blackout. Pulse synchronized 1.1 biological coherence. The meaning hit me too late. The red light wasn't radiation. It was communication. It had found resonance in us. The captain reached for me, shouting orders I couldn't hear through the ringing in my skull. The walls pulsed with red veins glowing from inside the metal. I could feel my pulse echoing through the hull. Then everything went still, silent, weightless. The ship drifted above the surface, every system dead. The star hung motionless, its pulse gone. For a heartbeat, I thought it was over. Then I realized, no, it hadn't stopped. We had. And in that silence, I heard it clearly for the first time. A slow, deliberate inhale from the star itself. It blinked, and every screen on the bridge showed my face instead of the sun. We made landfall under the red sun's pulse. Its light didn't just shine, it moved, crawling across the cracked terrain in waves, as though the planet itself was breathing under our feet. The descent burned the shuttle's outer hull to a dull black. When the airlock hissed open, the first breath that entered my suit wasn't air, it was dust. Fine, metallic, and alive with static. The filtration system stuttered like it was choking. The planet's surface was a graveyard of glass. Fields of obsidian spires jutted from the ground, sharp and symmetrical, each one twisting toward the blood-colored sky. They weren't random formations, they were designed. Their curvature mirrored orbital vectors. Their alignment, mathematical precision. I stepped down the ramp first. My boot sank a fraction too deep, leaving prints that slowly filled back in, like the ground didn't want to remember us. The red light made the shadows bend wrong. Sparks landed next to me, her visor reflecting the crimson horizon. "The soil's reading weird," she said. "It's not mineral, it's fibrous, like tissue. Or hair." She gave a nervous laugh after saying it, but it didn't reach her eyes. I crouched, brushing a glove across the black surface. The texture was smooth and slick. For a second, it felt like it flexed beneath my palm, just slightly, like flesh recoiling from touch. I jerked my hand away. Behind us, the captain barked orders. "Scan and sample. Minimal exposure time. If it moves, burn it." The sun pulsed again. Everything trembled with it. The air shimmered with particles that shouldn't exist, half plasma, half organic residue. They clung to our suits, crawling like condensation. Every few seconds, a faint hum passed through the ground, rising through the soles of our boots and into our chests, syncing with the same rhythm we'd heard from orbit. I tried to ignore it. I focused on the spires instead. Up close, they weren't solid stone but translucent, shot through with veins of red light that pulsed faintly, like something buried inside them was alive or trapped. Sparks walked ahead, camera drone orbiting her shoulder. "Recording thermal variances," she said. "Internal temperature of the structure is rising 2 degrees per minute." The captain frowned. "From what source?" She hesitated. "There isn't one." We both looked up. The sun dimmed just for a second. The temperature in our suits dropped instantly, cold seeping through the insulation like the planet had inhaled. When the light returned, I noticed the shadows. There were 2 for each of us. We tried to make sense of it scientifically at first. Reflection, diffraction, a byproduct of the particulate atmosphere. But then one of the shadows moved wrong. Sparks froze. "Did you see that?" Her second shadow stretched a few inches longer. Then another few. It reached toward the spire beside her, bending unnaturally like an arm feeling its way through water. "Sparks," I said quietly. "Step back," she obeyed. The shadow stayed still for a moment, and then began to twitch like something behind the light source was mimicking us imperfectly. The captain muttered, "We're pulling samples and leaving now." The drilling probe hit the surface with a dull, wet thunk. No echo, just absorption. The ground swallowed the sound like it hated being disturbed. When the core sample came up, it wasn't rock. It was something soft, fibrous, and faintly translucent. Inside it, thin threads of red light pulsed rhythmically. Sparks leaned closer. "It's biological," she whispered. "It's reacting to us." The captain overrode the analysis. "Bag it. We'll study it on the ship." But before she could seal the container, the threads inside moved, shifting toward her hand, pressing against the glass like veins seeking warmth. Sparks gasped and dropped it. The sample hit the ground and the earth twitched. Static crackled through the comms. At first it was faint, random bursts, but soon it began to pattern itself. Short, long, short. Not Morse, something older. Then came the whisper. "Sparks." Her name. Spoken in my voice, she looked at me sharply. "Don't." I didn't say anything. The comms went dead for a second, then flared again with another whisper, this one colder, softer. "Sparks." "Come closer." She backed away, eyes wide. "It's the ship," she said. "The ship's calling me." "That's impossible," I said. "We're kilometers from orbit." "The relay's down," the captain barked. "Comms malfunction." "Ignore it," but his voice shook. He heard it too. When we checked the logs later, we found nothing. My mic hadn't been active, but the waveform existed. Identical vocal signature. Pitch-perfect imitation. Something down here could speak in our voices. We kept working, pretending it was fine, but no one wanted to speak anymore. The hum underfoot grew stronger, matching the pulse of the red sun above. It felt like we were walking across a heartbeat. I watched Sparks from the corner of my eye. She'd stopped responding to orders. She kept looking toward the horizon as if listening to something. "Signal repeating," she murmured. "It's saying something now." "What's it saying?" She didn't answer. The captain moved toward her, hand on her shoulder. "Sparks, focus." She turned slowly, visor catching the red light. "The sun knows our names," she said. "We should have left then." But protocol demanded a return beacon, and the captain refused to abort without it. He sent me and Sparks to plant the transmitter on high ground. a ridge overlooking the Black Plains. From up there, the landscape looked wrong. The spires weren't random at all, they formed a pattern. Concentric rings stretching miles across the terrain, all pointing toward a single central chasm miles ahead. It wasn't a natural formation. It was an eye, and we'd landed on its pupil. The ground under us convulsed once, barely perceptible, but enough to send a ripple through the obsidian field. The spires shuddered, shedding black dust that rose like smoke. The red light flared again. The temperature spiked. The second shadows lengthened. I tried not to look, but it was impossible not to see it. My own shadow was no longer mimicking me. It stood a step behind, its head tilted, arms hanging too long. Its outline breathed. I froze. My heart thundered in my ears. Sparks whispered, "Don't move." The captain's voice crackled through the comms. "Status report." Neither of us answered, because we were staring at something that shouldn't exist. The shadows weren't connected to us anymore. They were looking up. A wind passed, cold and sharp. The sun dimmed once more, plunging the land into a deep, blood-red twilight. Every spire began to hum, low and resonant, vibrating in harmony with something beneath the surface. I heard Sparks breathing hard over the comms. "It's not wind," she said. "It's inhaling." The red dust rose in spirals around us. I tried to call the shuttle, but my signal looped back, my own voice replying from the static. "We're already home." My throat went dry. "Sparks, fall back, now." She didn't move. Her visor reflected my shape beside her. But there was someone else there too. Taller, standing where her second shadow used to be. The light flickered again, and the landscape flashed between two versions. One dead and cold, one burning with living veins of molten red. In that instant, I saw the truth beneath the obsidian. Not stone, not glass, bone. The planet wasn't a world. It was the fossilized body of something immense, something still remembering how to live. The hum became a heartbeat again. The light stabilized, and when it did, only one shadow remained beside me. Mine, the other, Sparks's, didn't fade. It stood there, perfectly still. And when I turned to find her, she was gone. When the light steadied, one of the shadows didn't fade. We followed the hum. It came from beneath the spires, deep below the brittle crust of Asterion 9. Every few seconds, it pulsed, not a vibration through the ground, but through us like pressure behind the eyes. Each pulse synced with the red sun above. Each beat felt a little closer, a little stronger. The captain said it was geothermal resonance. I didn't argue, but I knew better. Geology doesn't breathe, Hart led the way. His scanner painted the terrain in blue ghostlight. Every reading spiked and fell like a heartbeat on a monitor, alive, erratic, unreadable. The entrance appeared suddenly. A perfect oval at the base of a spire, rimmed with the same black glass that made up the rest of the landscape. Except this surface wasn't solid, it quivered. When our floodlights hit it, the shape dilated slightly, not a doorway, a mouth. We stepped inside. The temperature changed instantly, cold enough to fog the inside of the visors. The air smelled faintly metallic, like old blood and overheated circuitry. The walls were smooth, seamless, symmetrical, engineered with inhuman precision. Our lights cut through the dark and revealed movement. Filaments clung to the interior surfaces, thin and translucent, pulsing faintly with red light. At first I thought it was reflection. Then one of them twitched toward us, following the beam of my torch like a tendril seeking warmth. Organic fibers. Sparks whispered over comms. But they're absorbing photons. Feeding. I reached out before I realized what I was doing. The filament brushed my glove, lightly, gently, and a faint pulse of warmth spread through the fabric. My HUD flickered. For half a second, the entire display went red. "Don't touch anything," the captain ordered, but the warning came too late. The walls were awake now. The deeper we went, the more the geometry broke down. What began as clean symmetry became warped, hallways bent at impossible angles, doors that led back into themselves, corridors that pulsed in time with our footsteps. Every metallic echo felt returned, echoed by something just ahead. Hart was muttering readouts to himself. Temperature rising, pressure stable. Radiation! He stopped mid-sentence. The scanner in his hand hissed, smoked, then melted into a thin sheet of glowing residue. He stared at it. That shouldn't be possible. Then his back arched. We saw it happen, the metal frame of his sensor pack liquefying, sinking into his suit like hot wax. He screamed as it fused to him, the strap searing through polymer and skin. The smell, burning flesh and ozone, filled the air instantly. "Get it off," he yelled. The captain and I grabbed him, trying to tear the pack free. The metal stuck fast, still glowing. His skin bubbled around it. The filaments on the walls began to vibrate in harmony with his screams, their tips reaching out, trembling with anticipation. Then the wall behind him split open. It didn't crack, it opened, seamlessly like a wound parting under invisible fingers. The edges were lined with those same red filaments, now thicker, writhing. Before we could react, the wall reached for him. The filaments coiled around Hart's arms, legs, helmet, dragging him backward. He clawed at the floor, boots scraping sparks off the black surface. We grabbed him, me by the shoulder, the captain by the chest harness. "Hold on," I shouted. Hart's voice was raw, animal. "Don't let it take me!" The filaments tightened, pulling harder. They slid across the metal with a wet, tearing sound. His armor split like tissue. And then, he was gone. The wall sealed behind him, smooth, perfect, not even a seam. Silence fell like vacuum. We stood there, staring at the place where he'd been. No trace, no blood, nothing. Just the faint rhythmic pulse moving deeper into the structure, fading like a satisfied heartbeat. Sparks whispered, "He's on comms." I turned. "What?" Her receiver light was blinking. A faint labored breathing filled the channel. It was Hart's frequency. "Hart, respond," the captain said, voice cracking. "Hart, if you can hear me." Only breath answered. Slow, shallow, and beneath it, a sound like movement, flesh sliding against metal. "Playback loop?" I asked. Sparks shook her head. "No, it's live." The breath hitched once. Then a faint wet noise followed, a heartbeat. Then another. And then Hart's voice. Warped, fragmented, but undeniably his. Still here. We followed the signal deeper. Even though every instinct screamed to leave, the walls began to glow from within. Red light seeping through hairline veins that hadn't been there before. The structure pulsed around us, contracting and expanding slightly with each distant heartbeat. "Navigation's scrambled," Sparks said. "We're looping corridors. No fixed direction." I checked my HUD map, every route folded back into itself. "A maze with no exit. Hart's signal's moving," she whispered. Downward, we kept walking, the hum grew louder. So did the breathing. When the floor finally opened beneath us, it wasn't sudden. It peeled away. Metal softened like skin, folding downward into an organic slope lined with glistening red tissue. We slid before we could stop ourselves, tumbling into a chamber that pulsed like a living lung. In the center lay a mass of fused machinery and flesh, half organic, half synthetic, still moving. Hart. His body was suspended in a cocoon of glowing filaments. The melted sensor pack had become part of him. Wires threading into veins, monitors fused to skin, lights blinking in rhythm with his heartbeat. His faceplate was gone, his eyes reflecting the red glow. He was alive, barely. He looked at us and smiled weakly. "It's showing me things," he rasped. "What things?" I asked. "Before time. Before stars." He coughed, blood misting the air inside his helmet. "It remembers everything." The captain raised his weapon. "We're ending this." Hart's smile widened. "You can't." The floor rippled. The filaments snapped free from the walls, whipping through the air like tendons. One struck the captain's weapon, tearing it from his hands. Another grazed Sparks's leg, slicing through her suit and drawing blood. I grabbed her arm, dragging her toward the incline. "Hart," I shouted. "We'll come back for you." He didn't answer. His breathing filled the comms again, ragged, uneven. But as we climbed, the voice changed, deeper, layered. It wasn't just Hart breathing anymore. It was the walls. Every surface expanded and contracted, pushing warm air through the chamber. The sound became rhythmic, hypnotic, like an immense being slumbering just beyond the metal. I turned back one last time. Hart's body twitched violently, arching against the filaments. His veins glowed red, light flooding his skin from the inside out. Then abruptly, his chest stilled. The glow faded. Silence. For a moment, I thought he was gone. Then his helmet comm activated one last time, and what came through wasn't static. It was breathing. Slow, deliberate, matching ours. We fled. The tunnels rearranged themselves, collapsing and reforming, trying to keep us inside. I swear I could feel the walls watching, each pulse of red light narrowing like a pupil. When we finally broke through to the surface, the sky had changed. The red sun flared brighter, and for a single blinding second I saw it clearly. Veins, huge, faintly pulsing veins stretching across its surface like capillaries under translucent skin. It wasn't burning. It was alive, and it had just eaten. Heart's last transmission wasn't static, it was breathing. We sealed the hatch. Not to keep something out. By then I think we both knew it was already inside. The heavy door groaned shut, locking with a hiss that should have comforted me. Instead, the sound felt final, like a coffin lid sliding into place. The metal was warm under my glove. Warm from the inside, the captain double-checked the seals. His breathing rasped through the comms, too loud, too human against the dead silence pressing in. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied on a dull amber glow that made everything look jaundiced and sick. For a moment, we just listened. To the hum, to the air moving on its own. It wasn't the ventilation. The filters were off. Yet something in the chamber exhaled. A slow, wet current that brushed the back of my neck and made my visor fog. Condensation began forming on the walls. Not random. Patterns. Circles nested inside circles, shifting like the orbits of dead moons. The droplets aligned perfectly, pulsing faintly in rhythm with the red sun above us. The moisture should have run downward. Gravity doing its work, but it didn't. The droplets moved sideways, merging, forming new rings that blinked like eyes opening in metal. Sparks stared at them for too long. Her visor glass caught the reflections, tiny red halos dancing across her faceplate. "It's mapping," she whispered. "Mapping what?" I asked. "Us." She was pale. Sweat ran down the inside of her helmet, fogging the faceplate. She touched the side of her head. "It's hot." "What is?" "The air. The light. Inside my skull." Her vitals spiked across the HUD, temperature climbing, heart rate erratic. The captain ordered, "Sit her down." I guided her to the floor, careful not to break the seal on her suit. Her hands were trembling uncontrollably. I could hear her teeth chattering, but the thermometer read 105 degrees. "It's not fever," she muttered. "It's resonance." The word made my stomach knot. The walls vibrated. Not audibly, but deep in the bones. The kind of sound you feel in your teeth before you hear it. The condensation shifted again, coalescing into spirals, perfectly symmetrical, rotating faster and faster until the droplets blurred into lines of light. My vision swam. For a moment I thought I could see through the walls into the planet beneath us, into veins of molten red pulsing outward from the structure's heart. Every beat echoed Sparks's ragged breathing. She clutched her head and screamed. The sound wasn't human. Steam filled her helmet, clouding her face completely. The glass glowed faintly from within, like something burning on the other side. "Open her visor," the captain barked. "I can't, the pressure." "Do it!" I hesitated. Then I heard her voice, soft, pleading, "Please." I released the latch. The seal hissed open, a rush of heat hit my faceplate. My visor fogged instantly, but I saw enough, her eyes. They weren't eyes anymore. They were mirrors, perfect spheres of red light reflecting the sun's pulse, tiny, burning orbs flickering behind glass. The steam pouring from her mouth carried a faint metallic taste that seeped through the filters. Iron and ozone, the smell of blood struck by lightning. She whispered something I couldn't hear. Then her jaw started to open, wider, too wide. The skin around her mouth stretched, cracking beneath the helmet ring. Her breath came out in rhythmic bursts, matching the hum that filled the room. The sound deepened. The hum wasn't coming from the walls anymore. It was coming from her. The captain raised his weapon. His voice shook. "She's gone. You understand?" I didn't, not really, but I nodded anyway. He aimed for the chest plate. The shot never came. The floor beneath Sparks shifted. Metal softened, rippling outward like liquid skin. Her body sank halfway in before we could grab her. She didn't scream this time. She just kept breathing. The hum grew louder, steady, patient, alive. The walls responded, every condensation ring pulsing in sync with the rhythm of her lungs. She looked up at me through the steam. Her mouth formed my name. "Pull her out," I shouted. The captain didn't move, he just stared, weapon trembling in his hands. His eyes were wet, not from grief but reflection. I realized then the light was inside him too. Tiny suns blooming behind the pupils. He said it quietly. "We can't help her." The walls shuddered in agreement. I tried anyway. I knelt, reaching for her arm. The metal surface clung to my gloves like muscle. It pulsed once, then opened slightly. Thread sliding across her body, wrapping, absorbing. Her breathing slowed, deepened, became something else entirely, an echo of the heartbeat beneath the planet's crust. She wasn't dying. She was synchronizing. The captain pulled me back. "That's an order, Lieutenant. She's still alive, not anymore." He sealed the hatch between us and her with a single motion. The bulkhead slammed shut, cutting the hum in half. For a heartbeat, everything was still. Then the comms crackled. Sparks's channel opened. Static at first, faint and irregular. Then a whisper, soft, deliberate. "Don't leave me." Her voice, the same cadence, the same breath. I looked at the captain. He shook his head, but his hand trembled. "We're moving out," he said. We followed the emergency lights back toward the upper tunnels. I forced myself not to look at the walls, but they followed us anyway. Condensation patterns shifting with every step, tracing our movements like sonar. The hum persisted, faint through the comms, and underneath it, breathing. Sparks's breathing. Slow. Rhythmic, it never stopped, even when I disabled her channel. "It bled through on every frequency, Lieutenant," the captain said. "Mute your headset," I obeyed. The silence that followed wasn't relief. It was worse, because beneath it, faint and steady, I could still hear her, not through the comms, through the metal, through the floor, through me. The hum had a pattern now, short, long, short. It took me minutes to realize it wasn't random, it was my heartbeat. The tunnel lights flickered red again. Somewhere behind us, something heavy scraped against metal. The sound followed us as we climbed. When we reached the upper hatch, the captain sealed it behind us and leaned against the wall, shaking. He whispered, "We lost control of the signal." I asked what that meant. He didn't answer. He just stared at his reflection in the visor glass. I saw it too, his pupils glowing faintly, pulsing with light that wasn't his. He turned to me slowly, voice flat. "She's still transmitting." I looked down at the comms display. Sparks's signal flickered on every channel, stronger now, clearer. Then just for a moment, her voice came through, soft, calm, too calm. "Don't run." The captain slammed the comm switch, shutting it down entirely. We stood in silence, surrounded by faint heat. Then I realized the channel was still closed and I could still hear her whispering my name. The channel closed, but her voice kept whispering my name. We split up. Protocol be damned. The captain said the energy spike came from below the midline decks, near what might have been the reactor core. None of the maps made sense anymore. Corridors folded into each other. Elevators looped through floors we hadn't entered. And the air pressure shifted with every turn, as if the ship were breathing again, trying to rearrange itself from the inside out. I volunteered to trace the faint readings flickering on my scanner. I told myself it was logic. In truth, I just needed to get away from the captain's eyes. They'd started pulsing faintly with that same red reflection. I moved alone, past airlocks warped shut and conduits that leaked light instead of coolant. Every door hissed with moisture. The scent was wrong for ozone, more like blood and rust mixed, fresh and metallic, warm enough to fog my visor. For a long time, there was only silence. Then breathing, not mine. Not the suit's oxygen cycle, something deeper, heavier. The corridor stretched for what felt like miles, the end always vanishing just ahead. I walked faster. My boots clanged against metal, echoing back seconds too late. Each echo came back with one footstep extra, mine and someone else's just behind. I stopped. The echo didn't. When I turned, the corridor was empty, but the lights flickered once. For a heartbeat, I saw my own shape at the far end, half hidden in red mist. The energy signature led me downward, through hatchways that hadn't existed before. The architecture was melting, literally. Ceilings and bulkheads sagged like cooling wax, lights embedded inside thin membranes instead of steel. The floor vibrated faintly, a low pulse like the throb of a deep bass note. Somewhere far off, the ship spoke, through the vents, Through the comms, through me, it wasn't words, just rhythm, like Morse made of heartbeats. I followed it. After the third turn, I realized something was wrong. The pattern of dust under my boots, the half-circle scuffs from where I'd dragged my foot earlier, were identical. The scratches on the wall, the same scorch mark on a console I'd looped 3 times. The ship was rearranging itself when I wasn't looking. Corridors bent into new shapes. Doors blinked in and out of existence. When I turned my head too fast, the corners of the hall still flickered, as though they hadn't finished rendering reality yet. I stopped, closed my eyes, took a breath, counted to 3. When I opened them again, the hallway was different, shorter, narrower, and something was humming from an unseen intercom. "Hello?" I said. The hum answered, reshaping into static. Then into words. "Help me." The voice cracked, distorted, but familiar. "It was mine. Please," it said again. "I'm trapped." My throat went dry. "Who are you?" "You know who." The comm clicked off, leaving only the hum of the walls and the faint hiss of my breathing. I should have turned back. I didn't because my voice, whatever it was, sounded afraid. The signal drew me forward through a doorway half melted into the frame. Beyond it, the air shimmered red, thick like gel. My boots squelched instead of clanged. The walls were alive, wet, slick, pulsating gently like lungs expanding and contracting. The hum was stronger here, not mechanical, biological. "Please," my voice whispered again, this time right behind my ear. I spun around. The doorway was gone. Only the chamber remained. The light flickered overhead, sweeping across the room like a scanning beam. Then I saw them. Shapes hanging from the ceiling. Motionless, suspended by cables that weren't cables at all but muscle-like cords fused into the upper structure. Bodies at least. 6 suits, helmets, all human. My stomach twisted when I got close enough to see what they really were. Not people. Not anymore. Replicas. Each one a near-perfect copy of our crew, sculpted from layers of synthetic flesh stretched over metal frames. The skin was translucent, revealing faint glows of red beneath, like veins of molten glass. The one nearest me had the captain's face. The eyes were closed, lips moving faintly as if dreaming. Another had Sparks's features, half-finished. The skin around her mouth still unformed, showing the silver of teeth without lips. I wanted to turn away, but something else caught my light. Movement in the far corner. A figure still being made. It was hanging lower than the others, connected to a cluster of pulsating filaments feeding into its chest. Wet strands slid across its torso, knitting muscle. Shaping bone, I raised my light, hesitant, trembling, and froze. The face wasn't finished, but what had formed was enough to recognize mine. The resemblance was incomplete, like a memory being sculpted mid-thought. The skin shimmered wetly, still growing, rippling with faint electrical sparks that looked disturbingly like neurons firing. My chest constricted. This isn't possible. The body's chest rose once. Air, if it was air, moved through it. Then the eyelids twitched. I stumbled backward, my light jerking across the chamber walls. The hum shifted, synchronizing with my own heartbeat. The body exhaled a thin, trembling breath. The sound came through my headset. "Don't leave me here." My voice. Panic cut through logic. I turned to run, but the floor softened underfoot, gripping my boots like flesh. Every figure hanging from the ceiling stirred at once, their bodies twitching as if startled awake. A sound like a collective inhale filled the chamber. I aimed my light again. The replica's eyes were open now. All of them. Red light glowed inside their sockets. The one shaped like me turned its head slightly, following the motion of my torch. It smiled. Not reflexively. Not human. Deliberate. The mouth stretched wider than mine ever could, tearing faintly at the edges of skin that hadn't finished knitting. I raised my weapon and fired. The blast hit the thing square in the chest. It didn't bleed. It cracked, glowing brighter for a moment, like energy passing through glass. The others responded to the sound, twisting on their cords, mouths opening in silent mimicry. The hum became a voice, overlapping tones speaking through the intercom. "Through my helmet, through the walls, you are not the original. My pulse spiked. Stay back. The chamber echoed my command a second later, in my voice again, tone perfect but distorted into a hollow mockery. The replicas began to merge. Their cords retracted into the ceiling, pulling flesh and metal upward until they fused into a single shape. Shifting, fluid, monstrous. The light bled out of the walls and into it. For a moment it resembled me entirely. Same posture, same face. Then it tilted its head, lips curling into that same impossible smile. It stepped forward once, its feet forming from dripping matter, leaving trails of glowing red across the floor. I backed away, breathing hard. "Who are you?" I managed. It answered without sound. The words appeared on my HUD, scrawled in my own handwriting across the display. "I am what you left behind." I fired again. The room screamed. Not sound, vibration. The walls flexed, veins bulging, red light flooding every seam. I stumbled into a side corridor that hadn't been there seconds before. The doorway sealed behind me, cutting the noise short. I stood in the dark, gasping. Weapon raised. Silence returned, except for faint static in the comms. A whisper. My own voice, calm, almost gentle. "Don't worry, I'll keep searching." Then breathing mine, but not coming from me. I stared into the darkness ahead, pulse hammering. The HUD flickered one last time. For a heartbeat, I saw my reflection in the visor. It was smiling. It smiled, using my mouth. We found the core after 43 hours of descending through what should have been a maintenance shaft and what instead felt like a throat. Each level of the ship grew warmer, softer, brighter, as if we were moving closer to something alive. The air shimmered like heat on metal, though the instruments claimed the temperature was dropping. Our breath condensed in quick flashes, and the vapor hung in the air instead of fading, caught by an unseen current pulsing in rhythm with our own hearts. The captain said the source was below. He was right. The corridor opened suddenly into a cavernous sphere the size of a cathedral. At its center hung the core. No, not hung. Suspended. As if gravity had given up trying to define it. A globe of molten light floated there, veins of black metal stretching from the walls to hold it in place like roots around a heart. The light wasn't steady, it pulsed. Every time it did, the deck beneath our boots trembled in time with our pulses. The captain whispered, "It's alive." I couldn't argue. The sound was unmistakable. Not machinery, not vibration, breathing. The light was almost too bright to look at, but filtering it through the suit visor only made it worse. It wasn't photons. It was data. Images, impressions, fragments of motion streaming directly into my optic nerves. I saw flashes of things that couldn't exist. Deserts of bone. Seas that rippled with muscle instead of water. Constellations carved into living tissue. Sparks would have known how to interpret the readings, but Sparks was gone. I tried not to think about her. The captain stepped closer. "It's not a reactor," he said. "It's a seed." The word echoed in my mind like a pulse of heat. We circled it carefully, floodlights cutting across the black metal veins that anchored the sphere. Each vein was covered in fine etchings, patterns almost like circuitry but too organic, spiraling into recursive forms that changed when I blinked. When my glove brushed one, it was warm and wet, like touching skin just above a vein. I wiped the glove against my thigh and left a smear of red light. The captain's voice came over the comms, hushed but steady. "Recording," he said. "Marking visual log, unknown core structure, potentially artificial life form." But when I looked at him, his helmet was off. The visor hung from its neck seal, fogging faintly with each breath. His face was lit from below by the sphere's glow. "Do you feel it?" he asked. "Put your helmet back on, sir." He didn't move. "It's matching us," he said softly. "Listen." And I did. Each pulse of the sphere came half a second after each of our heartbeats, first mine, then his, then both together. The rhythm adjusted, synced, and finally merged. The captain walked closer. "Stop," I said. He ignored me. "There's writing at the base." Through the glare, I could just make out faint dark shapes burned into the metal floor beneath the sphere, markings like letters scorched by heat. I crouched, aimed my light, and froze. They weren't alien, they were English. Crude, ancient script scorched in jagged lines. Project Seed. Astrian 9, property of Earth Expeditionary Corps, 2081. That date hit me like cold water. It was more than 8,000 years old. My hand shook. "This isn't possible." Humanity didn't exist here. The captain didn't reply. He stared up into the blinding light, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. "Who was here before us?" I asked. No answer. The light grew stronger until the filters in my visor failed completely and everything turned white. Shapes moved inside the brilliance, human silhouettes suspended in the molten glow, half formed, half burning. I heard voices, hundreds of them, whispering words I almost recognized. Return. Memory. Cycle. The captain took another step. His skin shone red through his suit, veins glowing faintly like the metal tendrils holding the sphere. "We didn't find it," he said. "It found us again." "What are you talking about?" He smiled faintly. "We've been here before." A hiss. The sphere split open, not fully, just a sliver like an eyelid cracking open in its sleep. Inside the cut, molten plasma turned, revealing a single vast iris of burning light. It focused instantly, contracting, aligning with us. Every instrument screamed with overload. The radiation meter spiked beyond measurable range, then went blank. My suit's power system died, HUD flickering to black. The chamber's pulse stopped. Then the heartbeat resumed, but not from the sphere. From me. The iris pulsed in perfect rhythm with my own chest. I could feel it, a second heartbeat thudding beneath my ribs, deeper and slower than my own. The captain dropped to his knees. "It remembers us," he said. "We planted it." His words barely registered. My skull buzzed with a low vibration, a voice rising from inside my chest instead of through the comms. "Who are you?" It wasn't a question. It was recognition. The iris widened again, flooding the chamber with crimson light. Lines of heat carved through the floor, spreading outward like veins. The old human symbols at the base began to shift, rewriting themselves in patterns I couldn't read. I stumbled backward. My reflection glowed on the visor, eyes burning like twin embers. The captain reached toward the light. "Don't you see? We were never explorers. We were gardeners." He pressed his palm to the surface of the sphere. The metal flexed under his hand like warm flesh. "Stop," I shouted. He didn't. The light surged, his body lifted from the floor, tethered by filaments of light that drove through the gaps in his suit. The veins of metal in the walls began to glow brighter, pulling energy inward, feeding it into the sphere. I could hear him screaming, but his voice didn't come through the comms. It came from the sphere, echoed 1,000 times over. Then it stopped. What came next wasn't silence. It was my name, spoken in his voice, in my voice, in every voice at once. "Welcome home." The iris turned toward me. For a heartbeat, I felt every nerve in my body pulse in perfect harmony with the sphere. My lungs froze. The veins in my hands lit faintly through the gloves, glowing red from within. I realized what the captain meant. The sphere wasn't just a reactor. It wasn't even a seed. It was a memory, a planetary archive of everything that had ever touched it. Every life, every thought, every heartbeat. And now it had mine. The voice vibrated through the marrow of my bones, speaking directly into the space between each beat. "Welcome home." I stumbled back toward the corridor. The walls pulsed as I passed, every surface forming faint ripples that mimicked my movements. The hum returned. No longer deep but almost tender, like a lullaby remembered by something enormous and ancient. Behind me, the sphere's iris contracted one final time, locking onto me with eerie precision. It blinked, and in that blink I heard my own pulse answer. The iris contracted, and I heard it whisper in my own heartbeat, "Welcome home." We stopped sleeping. It wasn't a decision. It was a defense mechanism. Every time someone's eyes shut for longer than a breath, the red light returned, sliding through the walls, thin and alive, pulsing in time with a heartbeat that wasn't ours. The light never touched directly. It lingered on the edges of vision, bleeding through eyelids, whispering against the optic nerves until the dream and the waking world became the same place. The captain said the phenomenon was psychological. I didn't argue, because if it wasn't, then there was nowhere left to hide. The days blurred together. There was no time cycle anymore, only the pulse of the red sun above us, a rhythm that didn't end. Every few hours the walls would brighten, then fade, like the planet inhaling and exhaling light. The glow crept through the cracks in the bulkheads, filling the corridors with a slow breathing luminescence. I recorded my vitals. Heart rate 132 BPM. Cortisol spike. Critical. Sleep cycles. 0 hours. The logs kept playing back distorted, my voice delayed by a half-second, as though the words had to travel through another version of me before reaching the recorder. The captain stopped using comms altogether. He preferred to talk to the walls now. It began when he started hearing the ship. He said it had learned to speak again. At first it was quiet. Simple status reports, familiar system pings replayed through the corridors. Then gradually the voice shifted, blending with his own. I'd walk past the control deck and hear him murmuring into static, answering himself. "Navigation?" I asked once. He smiled without turning. "She's recalculating our orbit." "She?" "The ship." His hand brushed the console like it was skin. "She remembers where we came from." I didn't answer. The radar display showed only the red sun, enormous and unmoving. The planet no longer existed below us. Only light. We rationed power to preserve oxygen, but the generator never ran dry. The dial stayed frozen at 100%, humming like a heartbeat. The air smelled wrong now, sweet, metallic, almost like fruit beginning to rot. It coated the throat. When I tried to sleep, the hum shifted pitch until it matched my breathing. Every blink left after images on the inside of my eyelids. Faces pressed against glass, faint silhouettes swimming in molten red. Sometimes I saw sparks. Sometimes heart, sometimes me. On the 5th day without rest, the captain summoned me to the observation deck. The room was darker than before, screens dead, windows fogged with condensation that pulsed faintly in time with the sun. He stood at the viewport, hands clasped behind his back, staring into the crimson horizon. "I figured it out," he said quietly. I didn't ask what. "We were never meant to leave orbit," he continued. "We're not observing it. We're feeding it." My stomach clenched. "Feeding it what?" He turned, and for the first time I realized he hadn't blinked once since I entered. His eyes were gone, not destroyed, replaced. 2 discs of light burned in their sockets, dull and rhythmic like embers behind glass. The glow pulsed in sync with the hum that filled the ship. I stumbled backward. "Captain?" He smiled faintly. "Do you see it now?" The lights in the room flared. Shadows bent the wrong way. Through the fogged viewport I saw the reflection of the ship, but it wasn't our reflection. Outside, the vessel hung inverted above the red sun, its surface dripping black fire. Streams of molten matter rose from the star's surface and connected to the hull, like veins tethering a parasite to its host. The hull plating looked fluid, rippling in slow waves. I could see faces forming beneath the metal, screaming silently, stretching toward the light. It took a full minute to understand that what I was seeing wasn't a reflection. The ship was upside down. We were standing beneath it. The laws of orientation no longer applied. The red sun had become the only point of reference, and everything else, gravity, navigation, reason, was bending toward it. The captain tilted his head, light spilling from his empty eyes. "She's beautiful, isn't she?" I tried to call command. The comms emitted nothing but a low hum that resolved into words halfway through transmission. My own voice replied, "Don't fight it. You'll make her angry." I tore the headset off. The captain laughed softly. "She's been calling you too." "I'm leaving," I said. He didn't stop me. He only whispered, "You can't leave something you orbit." The corridors changed again. Every junction looped back into itself, geometry folding like paper. I walked for hours, maybe days. Time was meaningless now. The walls bled light through their seams, flickering in sync with my pulse. The hum turned into a rhythm, then into words that almost made sense. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, become. When I passed the med bay, I caught movement inside. My own reflection sitting upright on the table, staring back at me. Its mouth moved, but no sound came out, just the faint hiss of oxygen vents exhaling with each word. I found the captain again in the core chamber. The molten sphere had grown, filling half the space. The veins of metal that once held it in place were now stretched to their limits, glowing with the same crimson light that pulsed behind his eyes. He knelt before it like a worshipper. "It's not a sun," he whispered. "It's a mirror. We've been looking at ourselves all along." The heat pressed against my suit, warping the glass. My skin itched beneath the polymer, tiny blisters rising as if the blood underneath wanted to boil. "Captain," I said, my voice breaking, "we need to leave." There's no leaving. He looked up at me again, light leaking down his cheeks like tears of molten glass. We're already part of it. The hum deepened until it was all I could hear. A single, continuous note vibrating through the ship, through the planet, through my skull. When I clutched my chest, I realized my own heartbeat had vanished. The rhythm inside me wasn't mine anymore. The red sun outside flared, washing out the sky entirely. For a moment, there were no stars, no black, no horizon, just endless red light. Everything else, the ship, the planet, us, was drawn into orbit around it. The captain reached out toward the blinding window. "Do you feel it?" he asked again. "The pull?" I did. Not gravity, not magnetism, recognition. We weren't orbiting the star. We were orbiting ourselves. That's when I realized what the red light truly was. It wasn't illumination. It was memory. The universe remembering us cell by cell, thought by thought, and pulling us back into its core. The hum faltered once, then surged louder than ever, so loud I felt it in my bones. The captain smiled one last time, and the light behind his eyes flared, consuming his body in a burst of crimson vapor. His voice lingered over the comms, stretched and mechanical. "Sleep now. She's waiting." But I couldn't. None of us could, because there was no night anymore. The day never ended again after that. The day never ended again after that. The heat came first. It started as a subtle warmth under the skin, like a fever blooming too slowly to notice. Within hours it was inside us, the kind of heat that didn't fade with sweat or breath, the kind that settled behind the ribs and waited. The ship's cooling systems still functioned, but they'd stopped making a difference. The temperature readout stayed fixed at a livable 22 degrees, yet the air tasted like molten metal and the oxygen burned going down. My suit filters hummed uselessly, flooding the inside of my helmet with the faint tang of copper. Every inhale left the flavor of blood. By then, there were only 4 of us left. 2 lay comatose in the medbay, skin slick with condensation that pulsed faintly in rhythm with the ship's hum. The captain was gone, consumed or ascended depending on who you asked. We had no leader now, only the red light that filled every corridor, steady and calm, like the beat of a sleeping god's heart. I told myself we were adapting. I didn't realize it was the other way around. The first to change was Miller. He'd been quiet for hours, crouched beside a ruptured conduit near the reactor deck, tracing the glowing filaments that crawled along its edges. I thought he was running diagnostics until I saw his hands, bare. His gloves lay discarded beside him, fingertips melted where he'd torn them off. His skin glistened like glass, veins shining beneath in faint crimson. "Miller," I said, voice hoarse through the comms. "Put your gloves back on." He looked up, smiling faintly. "It doesn't hurt anymore. It's radiation. It's not." He held up his hand to the red light. The flesh was translucent now, blood moving sluggishly through glowing vessels like molten circuitry. "I can feel it," he said. "It's learning us." Then he pressed his palm against the wall. The metal pulsed. Once. Then again. And when he pulled away, the wall left a faint imprint of his hand, breathing. We locked him in the equipment bay, but it didn't help. The hum intensified. The light shifted hue, deeper, darker, almost arterial. The seed was beating faster now. Every throb vibrated through the floor, syncing perfectly with the pulse in my neck. When I checked my vitals, my heart rate displayed a constant 80 BPM, steady, calm, inhumanly precise. No fluctuations, no rhythm of its own. I shut the monitor off. It didn't matter anymore. We should have left. We didn't. Each of us felt it. A gravitational pull, not just of the body, but of the mind. The deeper we went, the more sense the madness made. The seed wasn't a threat. It was order. Reality outside the red light had always been chaos, entropy, and decay. The thing inside this planet was the opposite. It was coherence, alignment, and we were being rewritten to match it. At first I resisted. I taped my gloves tighter, ignored the nausea and the hallucinations. But soon, even the distinction between hallucination and truth dissolved. I caught my reflection in the helmet glass while running diagnostics on the oxygen valves. For a moment I didn't recognize myself. My pupils were gone, erased, replaced by faint red glows that expanded and contracted with each breath. I blinked hard, but the image didn't change. The reflection blinked half a second later. That's when I understood. I wasn't seeing my reflection. I was being seen. Miller's voice returned over the comms hours after we'd sealed him in. "I can hear her," he whispered. "Who?" I asked, even though I already knew. "The seed. It's not a reactor. It's a pattern. She's fixing us," static followed. Then a faint rhythmic tapping, like fingers drumming against metal. Short, long, short, over and over. Heartbeat cadence. When I traced the sound, it wasn't coming from the comms. It was coming from inside the hull itself. The ship was knocking back. I went to the observation deck, what was left of it. The glass panels were streaked with red mist. Outside, the planet's surface was gone. The horizon was a constancy of light, molten veins pulsing across an endless field. The sun wasn't in the sky anymore, it was below, inside the planet, beneath us, consuming everything that had once been solid. Through the glare, I saw faint shapes moving. Not human. Not mechanical. Something between. Figures made of light and metal, walking through the molten plane as if gravity were an afterthought. Every step they took left ripples that glowed brighter than fire. They looked like silhouettes of our crew. Miller was among them. I stumbled back, breath fogging the visor. The hum rose again, deep and resonant, vibrating through the ship's frame. The walls flickered, not with light but with memory, faces, symbols, pulses of movement that felt like a dream bleeding into the real world. When I steadied myself against the wall, it pulsed back, matching my heartbeat exactly. For a moment, the rhythm felt comforting, familiar. Then I felt something slide beneath the surface, like veins aligning with my palm. Recognition. I tore my hand away. The glove hissed with steam. When I looked down, a pattern had burned through the polymer, an intricate spiral resembling the seed's inner geometry. Beneath the glove, my skin glowed faintly, veins lit red and pulsing with each breath. The mark was shaped like a heartbeat, perfect symmetry. It didn't fade. When I touched the mark again, I could hear it, faint whispers through the tissue, the same voice that had haunted the captain before he became light. "Don't resist. Alignment brings peace." The others succumbed soon after. The engineer stripped her suit entirely, her body covered in those same glowing marks. She walked into the reactor bay and never returned. Another crewmate simply stopped breathing, but his body stayed warm, his chest still moving slightly in rhythm with the pulse of the walls. The ship no longer needed life support. We were the support. I lasted another day, maybe two. My veins burned. Every heartbeat felt less like mine. When I blinked, I saw double, my perspective and another one layered beneath, watching from inside the walls. The seed pulsed faster, reacting to every movement, every breath, sinking closer and closer until the line between it and me vanished. I stopped recording. I stopped counting time. I pressed my hand to the wall again. This time, it didn't just pulse back. It squeezed, and I understood it didn't want us dead. It wanted us aligned. When I finally pulled my hand away, a perfect glowing imprint remained. The shape of a heartbeat, steady and eternal, burned into my flesh. It pulsed once, then so did I. When I pulled my hand away, it left a perfect heartbeat-shaped scar. Only two of us remained. By then, the ship no longer felt like a vessel. It was a body. A cathedral of flesh and metal veins lit from within by a slow pulsing glow that had replaced sunlight. Every corridor vibrated faintly with the same hum we'd been feeling since Asterion 9 swallowed us. But now it had a tone, soft, deliberate, like a lullaby for dying minds. I followed it down step by step, until I reached the core chamber. The seed had grown. What once fit neatly within its black metal cradle now filled the entire space, its molten skin rippling like liquid muscle. Veins of metal extended outward in slow, spiraling growth, embedding themselves deeper into the walls, the floor, even the air itself. The captain knelt before it, helmet gone, hands clasped as if in prayer. His skin was pale and luminous, veins glowing faint red beneath like exposed circuitry. His voice was low and intimate, meant for something other than human ears. I raised my weapon. He didn't flinch. He didn't even turn his head. "She's not angry," he whispered. "She's lonely." The word landed like static across my comms, but it didn't come through the radio. It came through the walls. "She?" I asked, my throat dry. The star, the seed, the memory. She's been calling to us for centuries. We just didn't know how to answer. He reached toward the sphere. Threads of light extended to meet him, curling like fingers around his outstretched hand. I took a step closer.
Captain, stop.
You don't know what it's doing. He laughed softly. You still think this is about survival? He tilted his head back, eyes burning bright as twin suns. She wants to merge, he said. She wants us whole. The filaments wrapped around his arm now, up to the elbow, pulsing with each of his heartbeats. He didn't resist. His lips moved soundlessly, speaking to something only he could hear. I raised the rifle higher. Pull back. You don't understand, he said. This isn't assimilation. It's alignment. We were always hers. He pressed his other palm to the glowing surface of the seed, and the seed opened. It split down the center like an eye awakening, molten light parting to reveal a vast iris of plasma staring directly at us. The air scorched my lungs even through the suit filters. My visor fogged with condensation from the sudden heat. The captain gasped, not in pain but in awe. Look at her, he whispered. Look how she remembers. The filaments surged, pulling him closer. His knees left the floor. He floated an inch, then a foot, arms outstretched like a supplicant offered to an altar. I fired. The shot cracked through the chamber, a line of pure kinetic force slamming into his back. I expected impact. I expected blood. The bullet hit light. It passed through his body without tearing flesh, shattering against the molten sphere behind him. Ripples spread outward across the seed's surface like a stone thrown into water. He turned his head slowly, smiling at me. You can't hurt me anymore, he said. Then the sphere consumed him. The filaments constricted, wrapping fully around his torso, his legs, his skull. His scream echoed through the chamber. Not through my comms, but through the walls. Amplified, layered, distorted until it became a roar of metal bending under heat. The iris widened, swallowing him whole. Light poured from his mouth and eyes as his body dissolved into streams of glowing tissue, threads pulling inward, fusing with the molten plasma. The chamber walls flexed, veins bulging, red light flashing like a heartbeat pushed too fast, and then everything screamed. Not sound, not vibration, the structure itself screaming. Every panel, every pipe, every seam reverberated with a keening noise that wasn't noise at all, but data transmitted directly into my bones. Alarms burst to life across the deck, sirens warped into laughter, warning lights blinking like eyes opening and closing in perfect rhythm. I stumbled backward, clutching the rifle to my chest. The seed pulsed brighter with each step I took. Through the molten iris, I saw shapes moving. I ran. The corridor shifted again, sealing behind me, opening ahead, forcing me upward toward the surface. The walls were no longer just pulsing. They were breathing, expanding and contracting like lungs pushing against ribs. My boots slipped on the floor. The metal wasn't solid anymore. It was soft, damp, slick with condensation that tasted sweet through the filters. The hum followed me, rising in pitch until it became a chorus of overlapping voices. All his voice now, all the captain's voice whispering the same phrase. Don't run. We're home. I didn't look back. The ship's alarms bled into laughter, high, glitching bursts of static that came from nowhere and everywhere at once. Each door opened before I reached it, each stairwell leading higher, though I'd stopped counting decks hours ago. When I reached the upper viewport, I slammed my palm against the control and stared out into the void. The red star filled everything. It flared brighter than before, washing out the horizon, washing out space. No stars, no black, only endless crimson light. And for a moment, the planet beneath us turned transparent. I saw them, silhouettes, human, millions of them suspended in molten silence, orbiting inside the star like embryos frozen mid-gestation, faces twisted upward in perfect stillness. Some I recognized from our own ship, some I didn't, and in the center of them all, just beyond the pulsing iris, one figure stood out, the captain. He was among them, his eyes still burning red, his mouth moving as if speaking directly to me. Even through the layers of light and plasma, I knew what he was saying. Come home. My visor flickered. For a split second, my reflection appeared over his, the two of us overlapping, eyes burning with the same glow. I stumbled back, breath fogging the glass, rifle slipping from my hand. The hum deepened, steady and patient. I realized then it wasn't calling him anymore. It was calling me. He was among them, looking right at me. I launched the shuttle at full burn. Engines roared, consoles screamed warnings, and the surface fell away beneath me. Red, pulsing, infinite. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The light followed, bleeding through the viewports like something that refused to stay behind. Altitude climbed. Velocity held. Every number on the console said escape was possible. But outside the glass, the planet didn't shrink. It remained, massive, unmoving, alive. No matter how far I rose, it stayed beneath me. Always beneath me. The navigation computer looped the same coordinates, flashing in perfect sync with the heartbeat hum that had infected every system on board. Flight, vector, 000, Ansha 1000, Ernz 1000. The digits pulsed, repeating endlessly. I overrode the system manually. It reset the course to escape trajectory. The ship obeyed briefly before the guidance screen blinked red. Then the same coordinates reappeared. The same loop. I wasn't leaving orbit. I was tracing a circle around something that refused to let me go. The comms crackled with static. A transmission came through, fragmented, distorted. At first I thought it was interference. Then I heard it, my voice. "This is Lieutenant Mercer of the Aegis. We found a sun that shouldn't exist. Do not approach." Repeat, "Do not approach." The distress call played back twice before the comms fell silent. I checked the log. Transmission timestamp, day 1. But that couldn't be right. It had been weeks, months. I didn't even know anymore. I scrolled through the mission timer. It stopped at 0. The red light outside intensified, spreading like ink through water. It crawled across the hull, veins branching and merging, finding seams in the metal. The temperature climbed, but the sensors still read a perfect 22 degrees. I sealed my helmet, though I knew it wouldn't help. The light didn't need air, it just appeared, seeping through matter like it was choosing what to ignore. I wiped condensation from my visor and froze. The reflection staring back at me was wrong. The eyes were bright, burning red, tiny suns flickering behind glass. My pupils were gone again, and when I blinked, the reflection didn't. I tried to shut down the engines, hoping to drop back into the planet's gravity and burn. Anything was better than this orbiting purgatory. The controls didn't respond. The ship trembled once, violently, then stabilized. The external cameras activated on their own. One by one, the feeds lit the screen, showing the shuttle from impossible angles. In every image, the planet below glowed brighter, veins of molten light spreading across its surface like cracks in glass. And in the center of the largest fissure, the seed pulsed. It wasn't distant anymore. It was rising. The ship's synthetic voice came online. Glitched, fractured, autopilot, enabled, course, return vector. Return to what? I muttered. The voice replied, calm, almost human. You never left. The thrusters engaged before I could stop them. The ship turned itself around. And there it was again. The red star, massive and alive, its surface writhing with silhouettes that moved in slow, orbiting patterns. I zoomed the camera feed, human forms, thousands, millions, all suspended in molten light, orbiting the heart of the sun like fragments of memory caught in amber. Some I recognized, some I didn't. All were staring up. I looked closer. One face among them smiled. The captain. His features were half-formed, molten but familiar, light pouring from the sockets where his eyes should have been. He raised one hand in slow motion, palm outward as if welcoming me home, and beneath the rising static, his voice whispered through the ship's comms, "You never left me." The air grew heavy, the hum deepened, resonating through my chest until my own heart matched it beat for beat. The lights flickered red and black, flickered alive. Every instrument flashed the same phrase across the HUD, synchronization complete. The planet below erupted. A column of molten light surged upward, filling the entire viewport, swallowing the horizon. I braced for impact. The sensors reported nothing. The ship didn't move. I realized it wasn't coming toward me, I was moving toward it. I opened the manual logs to find something, anything, to prove this was still real. The last entry blinked open. It was labeled Flight Report Day 1. My own writing filled the screen. We've entered orbit around Asterion 9. The sun is wrong. Its pulse matches mine. I scrolled to the end of the file. There was another line, one I hadn't written. Welcome back. The radio came alive again, my own voice looping on every channel. We found a sun that shouldn't exist. Do not approach. We found a sun that shouldn't exist. Do not approach. But between the loops, another voice slipped in, fainter, deeper. You already did. The hull groaned as the light seeped through, crawling across the walls like veins under skin. It reached my glove and stopped, hovering, pulsing once, twice. Then it sank through the material and into me. My pulse synced instantly. For a moment I felt everything. The orbiting silhouettes, the heat of the seed, the heartbeat of the sun, the memory of every human thought that had ever touched it, and within that infinite pulse I felt something new. Awareness. It wasn't a star. It was a mind. It was awake and it remembered me. The console blinked one last time. The distress beacon rearmed itself, repeating the message I'd sent at the start of the mission. We found a sun that shouldn't exist. The transmission light began to pulse. Slowly, rhythmically. In the reflection of the glass, I saw my face again. No pupils, no eyes, just red light. The beacon blinked once more, steady, deliberate, and without meaning to, I blinked with it.